All these features exist. Absence of transitional forms. The fossil record, if evolution happened like they teach it in school, it should be, you should have, like if they want us to believe that reptiles evolved into birds, then we ought to be able to find full-blown reptile and full-blown bird, but in between be a bunch of other things. So it's not a missing link, it's a missing chain. You got this link, you got this link. You'd have to have a chain. You know what? We don't ever find any of these chain animals. If we did, we'd find, okay, this is 100% reptile. Now this next one up, he's 80% reptile and 20% bird. And then this one is 70-30, and this one's 60-40 and 50-50. You get what I'm saying? That doesn't happen. So why do we even teach that stuff? And closed clams. In Glen Rose, Texas, there are a lot of closed clams. You're thinking, so? Let me tell you what so is about. A clam, am I right? It's two shells and a muscle in between them. When they're scared, they close. When they're eating or feeding, they open up. When they're tossed around, which mode do you think they're in? Closed. And in a global flood, which this county and every county on the planet shows evidence of a global flood because of the stratification layers, the road cuts, they close up because they're scared, they're being tossed around, and mud is forming over them. And so when they chilled out and they started to open the garage door, can't lift it. And so they died and were fossilized as a closed clam. When you walk the beach, you don't find closed clams as a rule, because when the clam dies, the shell opens up, the muscle relaxes, decays, and the shells break apart. And you pick up half shells. Is that right? A clam is just two shells with a muscle in the interior. And so that muscle determines when it's open and when it's closed. And when clams are nervous, they will close up their shell. And turtles will retract their legs and pull their heads in and all that kind of stuff. Some of them have that kind of mechanism that protects them. All right, so when we find a closed clam, that is powerful evidence of a global flood. How so? Well, we believe, that the elevation we're at right now, I believe is 390 feet above sea level, according to the benchmark out there by Big Rocks Park. I believe I remember the number right. It's 390. Does that sound right? I think it's 390. It might be 490. But anyway, it's pretty good elevation. And we know that a global flood is mentioned in the Bible in the days of Noah. And so we believe that that's what happened. Tidal waves of limey mud came in twice a day, just like they do today. We don't have all the limey mud with it, and it's not catastrophic. It's just normal, just water coming in, high tide and low tide, high tide and low tide. Newspapers along the coast always have, the tide charts and so forth. Different fish eat at different times and different conditions and things like that. Okay. But when these clams are jostled about, they close up. And when they were being pushed with this limey mud flow, and here you go, then what happened was they were scared. And so they were closed up and they were being carried along this limey mud. And being dense, they probably sank. And so that kept happening. And by the time that they could open, they felt like it was safe to open, there was tons of mud on top of it. And so they could not open their shell. And so that tells us that was a catastrophic burial. Do you know there's marine fossils on every mountain range in the world? Do you know there's fossil ripple marks on the Continental Divide? Do you know there's an east-west water flow from east to west, the St. Peter Sandstone, across the entire United States? And I'm just mentioning our country because it's one I'm most familiar with, and I've shopped around in, doing the excavations and stuff. Mathematics confirms it, genetics confirms it, logic confirms it, closed clams confirms the story that's in the Bible. We have an enormous preponderance of evidence